Hey, good morning, Vertical Church. My name is Mikey Cruz. I'm on staff here as the worship director. Welcome to day 12 of our 14-day prayer devotional that we're calling the Move Me Movement. Over these 14 days, we're looking back at the Old Testament to see how God moved the Israelites forward from their exodus out of slavery in Egypt to their 40 years in the wilderness and into their conquest of the Promised Land. Yesterday, we discussed how movement requires sacrifice. Well, today, we're going to discuss how to keep moving even when it gets hard. The Israelites had been traveling in the wilderness and they'd become weary, and they complained to Moses about the lack of food, which led to God miraculously providing them manna from heaven. Then the Israelites faced a water shortage at Rephidim, and Moses, upon God's command, struck a rock to produce a spring of water. Amazing! The Israelites had been miraculously provided food from heaven and water from a rock. Things were starting to get a little easier, or so they thought. Then a guy named Amalek shows up with his people, and he picks a fight with the Israel people at Rephidim. Like, come on, dude. So Moses orders Joshua to grab some men so that they could fight against Amalek. And Moses was doing all he could do to support the battle behind the scenes and staying in prayer. The fate of Israel in battle depended on Moses' intercession, because as he prayed to God, Israel prevailed. And when he stopped praying, Amalek prevailed. Let's pick up this story in Exodus 17, verses 11 through 13. Whenever Moses held up his hand, Israel prevailed. And whenever he lowered his hand, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hands grew weary. So they took a stone and they put it under him, and he sat on it, while Aaron and Hur held up his hands, one on one side and the other on the other side. So his hands were steady until the going down of the sun. And Joshua overwhelmed Amalek and his people with the sword. Israel's victory over Amalek involved three elements: the power of God in heaven, the skill of Joshua and the army on the battlefield, and the intercession of Moses, Aaron, and Hur on the top of the hill. God could have sent angels to annihilate the enemy, but instead he decided to use human instruments to accomplish his purpose. Joshua and his army trusted God in the fight. Moses and his associates trusted God to intercede, and God did the rest. In this way, God's people grew in faith, and God's name was glorified. It was customary for the Jews to lift up their hands when they prayed, and since Moses held the staff of God in his hands, he was confessing total dependence on the authority and power of God Almighty. As long as Moses' hands were raised in intercessory prayer to God, Israel prevailed. This picture here in Exodus 17 shows us that movement requires support, and that we must keep moving together even when things get hard. Joshua couldn't have succeeded without Moses, but Moses couldn't have prevailed without the support of Aaron and Hur. Not everyone can be a Moses or a Joshua, but all Christians can be like Aaron and Hur and help hold their hands up as they obey God. God is looking for people who will share in the battle and the victory by continuing to keep moving and supporting each other even when things get hard. As you pray today, pray for the endurance to keep moving forward even when things get hard. Pray for the pastors, the staff, and the leaders of the Vertical Church, that God will continue to use them and strengthen them. Ask God how He wants to use you to support the Vertical Church through prayer and through serving.